Hello everyone, it is Wednesday, and that means it's time for my weekly Crack-A-Pack video. Right now that means Amonkhet, and we're going to go ahead and open this, and we're going to talk about what the best pick in this pack is for limited purposes. So let's go ahead and do that. Our first common is Retcrop Spearmaster. He's a perfectly fine card. I play him in a lot of white decks, and I feel okay about him. The 4/1 first striker isn't bad. He does die to any -1/-1 counter, which can be obnoxious, but he's still all right. And I play him in most white decks, but I don't really want to first pick him. There's got to be something better than that in here. Next, we have hieroglyphic illumination. Similarly, I'd play this in basically any blue deck. It has one mana for cycling, which makes it very playable on its own, but you can also choose to draw 2 cards with it. It's sort of a split card where you get to decide what you want to do with it, like a lot of the cycling cards are, and I like that a lot. Next, we have Fling, which I don't really like at all in this format. It doesn't have enough sacrifice synergies. If this format had a bunch of creatures who did stuff when they died, it would be great, but there's hardly any of them. So Fling is not actually that good, and I actually think it's basically unplayable in this format. Next common we have is Mighty Leap, a reasonable combat trick. Not much more than that. It's good in a white aggro deck. That's about all there is to say about it. Our next card is Quarry Hauler. I like this card a lot. I'd play it in any green deck, and I think right now it's our first pick. It's close between it and hieroglyphic illumination. For 4 mana, you get a 4/3, which is a great rate in limited, and you get to do some things with counters that you have in play or that your opponent has in play. You can add -1/-1 counters to things. You can add brick counters to things. You can subtract -1/-1 counters from things. Even loyalty counters if you happen to have a planeswalker. So Quarry Hauler for me is what I want right now. Next, we have Scarab Feast. This thing is a good sideboard card. It also has 1 black cycling, so if you're deep into a cycling deck, put it in your deck, especially if you have Drakehaven, basically the big blue rare, then you should feel fine about mainboarding this. If you don't have a big cycling payoff, though, it's not much more than a sideboard card. It is good at getting rid of problematic embalmers and cards with Aftermath. Next, we have Impeccable Timing, which I think is a very underwhelming removal spell. Not one I play most of the time unless I haven't gotten any other removal, basically. It's a little bit better, I think, in an aggressive deck than it is in a deck that wants like real removal, though. So that's worth keeping in mind. Next common is Luxor River Shrine. I think this is close to unplayable. I can see it being good if you have an incredibly grindy deck and you need to, not only stabilize but get up from 4 or 5 life. But it just costs a total investment of 6 mana to eventually, and you only gain 3 life in that process to get to where it can gain you 2 life a turn. And sometimes you just don't have time for that. Okay, next we have Horror of the Broken Lands. For me, that's the new best card in this pack. It's better than Quarry Hauler. It's 5 mana 4/4, which isn't great, but it has 1 black cycling, which is nice. Means it can be useful on turn 1 and on turn 5. And it's also a decent cycling payoff as it turns itself into a 6/5 when you cycle or discard a card. So it's a very good aggressive card. Next common is Evolving Wilds. You play this in a lot of decks. If you see them, especially mid-pack, it's usually worth taking them because being able to splash means you can splash some off-color bombs. But I don't usually like first picking them, not in this format. There's some formats where, the best deck is multicolored in 3 or 4 colors, in which case it gets a little better. Next, we have Watchful Naga as our first uncommon. I'm not a huge fan of this card. It just, a lot of the time, is just a 3 mana 2/2 that will draw you a card, which normally would be good, but that is 3 mana 2/2s that draw you cards are usually good because they can then trade for something. Watchful Naga won't necessarily. Sometimes you just have to chump attack with it, ram it into your opponent's 3/3 to draw the card. So you're basically paying 3 mana to draw a card. And that is a terrible rate, especially in a set filled with cycling. Next, we have Sacred Excavation. Sacred Excavation is a very good card if you really get there on cycling. Not worth first picking. It's the kind of card that will wheel because there aren't going to be enough people at the table who have like 10 plus cards with cycling. So wait for it to wheel. Don't take this thing early. So we're still on Horror of the Broken Lands. Our next uncommon is Watchers of the Dead. It's a 2 mana 2/2 basically. The effect it has isn't that good because your opponent's going to keep the 2 cards in their graveyard that are the most relevant. The one place where it can actually be at its best, I guess, is against blue-red because they have several cards that care about how many instants and sorceries they have in their graveyard. And sure, they'll keep 2 of them, but it'll weaken their Enigma Drakes and stuff like that. And it's a fine main board card too if you need a 2-drop. I'm not saying it's unplayable, just not an exciting card you want to take with your first pick. Okay, and our rare is New Perspectives. 6 mana to draw 3 cards is terrible, but then once you get 7 cards, your cycling is free. This pack is pretty weak, I would say, which is, last week we had a very powerful pack. I think in the end, the 2 best cards easily are Quarry Hauler and Horror of the Broken Lands. So we sort of remind you of our camel here. But I think I want Horror of the Broken Lands more. It can be played in any black deck. Even if you get 0 other cards with cycling, it's got so much upside because it can be used at any time, basically. You can cash it in for a card early, and in the later game it gives you a 4/4 body. So I think Horror of the Broken Lands, this was a weak pack. Let me know in the comments what you would have first picked. Also, a reminder that if you post in the comments below that you'd like to be entered in a giveaway, you can win all the packs that I open this month, in the month of May, on these Crack-A-Pack videos. So make sure to enter if you have not yet. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week for another Crack-A-Pack.